Let's talk to God. One more thing, like, subscribe, and share. Come on, let's talk to God. Woo!
Hey, good evening, everybody. It's Cutler here in the Let's Talk to Cutler broadcast, the Let's Talk to Cutler virtual book club, the Let's Talk to Cutler YouTube channel. And it is another Thursday. It's the 21st of September. And I am so thankful for this time that we get to spend together. And just in case someone is stopping by or catching this for the very first time and they wonder, what is that guy up there talking about? Let me just go ahead and put this out here. This platform, it's really about inspiration. It's about motivation. It's about challenging ourselves to show up better today than we did yesterday. It's about challenging ourselves to show up better tomorrow than we did today. And all things considered, it's about trying to be our best selves, even in the worst of situations. Yep, trying to be our best selves, even in the worst of situations, because they just show up sometimes unannounced. Sometimes they come knocking on your door. Sometimes they come try to knock your door down. These worst situations, scenarios will show up. But we spend these 1,800 seconds live every Tuesday and Thursday. And so let me just back up. It's only 1,800 seconds. I tell you this. Why don't you just go and get somebody else? Go and find a friend. Tell them, come on, let's talk to Cutler. Because the man is just up there trying to help save our lives. He's talking about inspirational things. He's talking about motivational things. He's talking about things that would just give us that second nature, if you will, at being our best selves, at trying to evolve, at trying to change and grow and adjust to the dynamics in life, because the dynamics in life are just that. They are dynamic. They are always moving, ever moving. And so I encourage you all to catch the replays when you can, and whenever you can catch the lives. Please, I would love to see y'all. I like seeing my friends. So go and tell somebody, I want to see all my friends. So come on and show up if you will. But again, there's enough bad news out there. There's enough negativity. There's enough pessimism out there. So we try to spend this time together wherever you allow me to come to your homes, or if you're walking, exercising, wherever you are. Thank you for that. Thank those of you who catch the replays, those of you who catch the lives, whatever you do to support this platform. I am thankful for that. I did not want this evening to go by without me expressing my gratitude and saying thank you so much for that. I'm going to shout out the LTTC VIPs in just a moment. But before I do, I want to encourage you to subscribe. Go ahead and subscribe. Please subscribe. Please subscribe. We're getting ready for the fall and in the winter. I want y'all to be here with me during the fall and the winter, the change of seasons and all that kind of stuff. But again, I am just so thankful that you all take the time to be as encouraging and motivating as you are to me. Many times when we sit on this end as content creators, we feel that we are the ones who are giving and giving and giving and giving all the time. But may I tell you that every time you all pop in and you say hi, and you pop in and you make your nice comments and you're just courteous, I'm encouraged by that. I'm encouraged by kindness. I'm encouraged by niceness. I'm encouraged by respect. I'm encouraged by people being considerate of each other, because there's so many things opposite of that in the world today. It's always refreshing whenever I run into it. So thank you. Enough said. Again, if you haven't, go ahead and subscribe. And once you click subscribe, click on the notification bell. Now, depending upon your device, it's either down there, it's up there, it's over there, or it's over there. It's somewhere. So go ahead and subscribe. This evening, we're going to talk about what kind of advice giver are you? And I will tell you where that conversation comes from. But before I talk about what kind of conversation giver are you, I want to jump over in the chats. I see some people still logging in. So come on over in the chats. I see you logging in. You haven't gotten over there yet. But go ahead, come on in the chat and say hi. And I want to tell you from my perspective who it looks like the top 3 people are who are in the chat this evening. It looks like it's Tracy Johnson, Annie Cutler, and Deborah Dade. It is so good to see all of you. Many blessings to you, Bishop. I love watching your commentary. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. And it is a joy to have you. It really is. And a blessing to have you as well. So let's talk about what kind of advice giver are you. You all round up your friends. round up your acquaintances, round up your colleagues, because we're going to have a good conversation this evening. I believe it's going to be a good one. I was sitting in the midst of a conversation yesterday, and we were talking about. I told you all that I'm reading this book by T.D. Jakes. It's called Disruptive Thinking. Well, I was sitting in a conversation, and we were talking about what kind of uh, uh, partners we have in life, what kind of acquaintances and colleagues and friends. And one of the pieces of the conversation that came up was, how do we categorize our friends? You all go and get your friends. I'm telling you, you're going to want them here for this conversation. We were talking about how do we classify, how do we categorize our friends? Because many acquaintances and relationships and partnerships, many of them are either categorized as a 1, 2, or 3. I'm telling you, go and get your friends for the conversation we're about to have, because I'm going to ask you all, are the people in your life mostly ones? I am a shut my mouth advice giver. All right. Are the people in your lives mostly ones, twos, or threes? Now think about this. This is the conversation that I was a part of last evening. And we said that in most relationships, you find yourself either as a 1, 2, or 3. As a 1, you are in a relationship where people are pouring into you. So people are pouring into you. So you have a mentor and you find yourself in the protege situation. So there's this situation where someone is pouring into you, giving you advice, giving you counsel, helping you, encouraging you, pushing you through. So that's a 1-3 relationship where you're the 1. Then we have a 2-2 relationship where you are 2. You really are colleagues, you're equals, you push each other, you pull each other, you encourage each other, you challenge each other, all that sort of thing. So you really find yourself as an equal. Then there's a 3-1 relationship where you find yourself as the mentor. And as the mentor, you're pouring into your protege. So I want you to classify your relationships. Think about your relationships for just a moment. Are you a 1, 2, or 3 in your relationships? And it does not mean that you have to be just a 1 in every friendship. Perhaps there are various facets of your relationship with an individual where you are the 1, where they're pouring into you. There could be other facets where you are the 3 pouring into them. And then there could be other perspectives and other facets where you are both equals or you're both colleagues, and it's this give and take sort of situation. So I want you to think about that, because that really feeds and fuels the way in which you give advice. So let's start there. How do I categorize my relationships? How do I categorize my friendships? In those partnerships and acquaintances, am I a 1, 2, or 3? Am I the protege where people pouring into me? Am I colleagues and equals, or am I the 1 pouring into? Am I the mentor pouring into someone else? Think about it. That was a conversation. My sister-in-law was a part of that conversation, and she has been on it all day long, just classifying and categorizing her acquaintances and friendships. And she's called so many members of the family and said, hey, what are you a 1, 2, or 3? What kind of friend are you? And she said some of her friends called her today, and she looked at the caller ID and said, now let me see, is that a 1 calling me, a 2 calling me, or a 3 calling me? But I have to say this, think about it. I see you all are saying, as you're ranking yourself, but think about striking a balance. Think about striking a balance. There are some people in my life. Some of y'all see where I'm going. There's some people in my life where for a particular thing, they may be a 1. Or for another facet of our relationship, they might be a 3. And other times they may be a 2. You can find all of that in one relationship. For example, think about this. Think about this. If you could be in a friendship or an acquaintance where you might be the most spiritual in the group. So then you might find yourself, as it pertains to spirituality, the three in the group pouring into others. However, you might be the three when it comes to spirituality, but when it comes to finances, your finances might be jacked up. You might not be the best one at managing finances. So in that relationship or that friendship, you might very well be a three, a one rather, as it pertains to finances. Am I making sense? So in one relationship, you can find yourself either a one, two, or three, depending not only on the person, but depending upon the facet of the conversation or the facet of the friendship that is demonstrated or displayed at that time. All right. So then, depending upon whether or not you're one, two, or three, let me see what you all are saying. Let's see. Someone's already saying what kind of advice giver they are. I'm a shut my mouth advice giver. Once I give advice and the rationale behind my advice, the person disagrees, I shut my mouth. Okay. And then the others, let's see. Others in terms of ranking, whether or not you find yourself as a one, two, or three. Let's see, mostly two. I definitely say two. Two. In my circle, we pour into each other. Can't be a one, two, or three, depending on the person. Me and my friends, I think we switch through all of the hats of one, two, and three, depending on the situation. Makes sense depending on the situation. Yes, that's right. Okay, good. So I'm glad that you all at least see how you can be, even in a relationship with one person, with the same person, you can be a one, two, or three, depending on the situation. Or you may be a one, two, or three, depending on the person, because maybe there are some people you are always a two. It's always very collegial and mutually beneficial and mutually challenging. It's always like that. So that's fine. Then there are others where you may find yourself the three most of the time, particularly if it is the mentoring situation and the nature of the relationship is such that you are the mentor, you are the life coach, that kind of thing. We see that often in, particularly as we you're raising children or that sort of thing, until they grow up and become adults, then they could very well become threes in certain areas. All right, so then let's talk about this. As a one, two, or three, what kind of advice giver are you? What kind of advice giver are you? And I'm asking that for a particular reason, because depending upon the role that we play in people's lives, that may dictate how we give advice, what kind of advice we give, and what kind of expectations we have when it comes to giving advice. There are some do's and don'ts of giving advice that we need to talk about. So I'm wondering, what kind of advice giver do you consider yourself? Because getting advice from friends and family members or colleagues, it really can give you the boost sometimes. It can give you the boost that you need to solve a problem or to get out of a rut or to handle a situation. Maybe it was at work, you had a hard time at work. Maybe you just need a second opinion about, listen, this is how I'm going to paint my house. This is how I'm going to decorate my room. This is what I'm going to wear to this event. This is the kind of meals I like to prepare. So you might just want advice. Maybe you just need advice. But may I suggest that there is an art. There's kind of this art to giving advice, depending on your role in somebody's life, whether you're one, two, or three. And I've said this before, when it comes to people in your lives, I say this so many times. When it comes to people in your life, you need to give them two things. You need to give them a license to play the role for which they are present in your life. And you need to give them a promise that you're going to receive what they have to say if it's given to you out of a place of love, care, and concern. All right. So give them the license and then give them the promise. If people in your lives and you can't give them a license to be who they are, you don't need them in your life. Either you don't need or want them in your life. Think about it. People who are in your life, you have to ask yourself, do I want what they bring? Do I want what they have to give? And have I given them the license to be who they are? And have I also given them the promise that it is okay to be who you are in my life? There's an art. There's an art to this thing that we call friendship. And not a science, but an art. There's an art to giving advice. There's an art to taking advice. And like everything else, it takes practice. And if you put effort into learning how to do it, we can build lasting relationships. One of my friends says to me, I'm too old to start all over with new friends. I concur wholeheartedly. And advice is important because it helps you find new ideas when you're trying to solve a problem. When you feel like the weight of the world is on your shoulders, sometimes you need advice. When you're confronting difficulties, when you're confronting hard situations, hardships, and sometimes hard people, you need advice. And a friend's personal wisdom, it brings value added to your life. And I don't know about y'all, but the truth of the matter is, the older I get, the more I feel like I can give advice because I feel like I've gained a little bit of wisdom under my belt. And we sometimes like to give advice, but we have to be careful about how, when, and where we give advice. Because although advice can be value added, it may not be accepted. It may not be accepted depending upon the circumstances and the situations. And sometimes people won't ask you for advice because it can be a little scary to get somebody's opinion. Even if it's a good friend. Let's talk about this thing, you all. Even if it's a good friend, because sometimes asking for advice feels like it could bruise your ego or stir up these feelings of shame. So we have to think. So that is why it is important to be careful with how you deliver the advice that you're planning to give. I'm looking at what you all are saying in terms of what kind of advice giver you are. I'm reading it, consider it truthful, confront, deal with, and get resolved. Okay, let's talk about it. Let's talk about some of the do's of giving advice. Whether you are 1, 2, or 3, let's talk about some of the do's of advice, of giving advice. One of the things that we have to be careful about is to make sure that the advice is solicited. Not every problem warrants your advice. Sometimes people just need to vent. I give my friends the space to say to me, Cutler, I'm not asking for a solution. I'm asking for your ear. And a lot of times you have to think about that. People are not always asking for a solution. Sometimes they're just asking you for your ear. Sometimes people just want to talk out loud to somebody that they trust. So before giving your sage wisdom, pay attention to whether or not they're asking you for advice, or whether they're just asking you for a shoulder to lean on or an ear to bend in the moment. So one of the do's, if you will, of making sure that you are giving good advice or giving advice in a good way is to make sure your advice is solicited. And then something else that you may want to do in terms of making sure that you're giving good advice or becoming a good advice giver, use your body language. Use not just your mouth, but your body language, because the person has come to you because they think you'll be a good listener. And you want to use your body language to let them know that they have your full, undivided attention. What kind of body language, Cutler? Eye contact, for starters. Giving people your eye contact, making eye contact is an active listening technique. I know, Cutler, eyes, active listening. Yes, absolutely. Giving people eye contact is an active listening technique. And it lets people know that you are paying attention. And one of the things eye contact will do, it will solidify your connection with the person. You can't give me advice if you're not connected to what I'm saying. You can't give me advice if you're not connected in the moment. You can't give me advice if you're not connected to my heart. You can't give me advice if you're not connected to the situation, the circumstances with which I'm dealing. So use your body language. If you're going to be good at giving advice, use your body language. Connect with people. So then make sure it's solicited, and then make sure that you're using your body language. And as you are becoming an active listener, ask questions. And ask more than these closed-end questions that just require a yes or no. Ask open-ended questions. Why, Cutler? Because they help you to get an understanding. They spark conversation and they help you both to understand what that person is going through, your perspective. If you're going to be a good advice giver, if you're going to be a considerate advice giver, ask questions. Well, why do you think such and such and such? How can I be of assistance in that situation? How can I help you in this moment? If the tables were turned, then what counsel would you offer me? These are questions that require more than a yes or no response. If you want to be a good advice giver, learn to ask these kind of questions. And then, as Tracy is suggesting in the comments this evening, make sure that you're honest. Make sure that you're truthful. And may I suggest to you, may I tell you that sometimes being truthful is simply saying, I don't have an answer right now. I don't know. I don't have an answer. Because it's one thing to brainstorm solutions together and try to work this thing out together. And then there's a whole difference between that and just filling up the space with unhelpful advice. Your advice might be, I don't know. Check with somebody else. I don't know. Someone else might be able to give you more direct advice. I don't know. But can I help you find someone who might know? Be honest, y'all. Be truthful. We're not equipped to fix every situation for everybody in our lives, even if you are three. Even if you are three pouring into somebody, sometimes the answer that you have to give is, I don't know, but let me help you. Or can I help you find the answer? What would you like for me to do? I hope this is helping somebody. These are some of the things that we do to be good advice givers. And sometimes when your friends come to you and they don't know, sit down with them and work out and weigh out the possibilities together. Why would you say that? Because people's situations, people's experiences, people's circumstances are unique. And you may not find a template, cookie cutter answer for what your friends are going through, for what your colleagues are going through. It's about sometimes weighing the possibilities together, sharing experiences together, trying to consider different outcomes. So if you do this and this is how it's going to turn out. But if you do that, it might turn out another way. It's been said two heads are better than one, because sometimes when you put your heads together, you might think of new ideas and solutions that you wouldn't otherwise think of on your own. Wow, Cutler, this is good. This has helped me to think about, how am I going to be a better advice giver? Just as I've offered those, there's some things that we don't need to do. There are some things that we don't need to do. So there are some yeses, there are some do's of sharing advice. Then there are some don'ts, some things that we need to avoid. Because you have to think about this, you all. If you give bad counsel, bad advice, bad suggestions, you can make your friend's situation, your partner's situation, your acquaintance's situation, you can make it worse. That is why one of the do's is, when you don't have an answer, say, I don't know. If we're going to be good advice givers, don't give bad advice. So there are some don'ts. There are some don'ts. One of the things, I got to start with this. When you give advice, don't go gossiping afterwards. Even if it is what you consider good gossip, don't do that. Don't do that, because that doesn't reflect well on you. Sharing other people's problems without their consent, it can make you look like a horrible person. People come to you, the ones, the twos in your life, the twos in your life, and the ones in your life, even the threes in your life. When you're sharing, when you are sharing other people's problems, and they didn't agree to it, they didn't acquiesce, they didn't consent to it, it does not speak well of your character. People come to you because they value and trust your judgment. Don't break that value. Don't break that trust. M. Harris, it is keeping the conversation confidential. It is a must. There are some good things that have happened to me in my life, and I share them with my friends. But even though they're good things, I don't necessarily want everybody in my personal space, in my business. Don't gossip. And then don't do this. I hope I'm helping somebody this evening. Don't compare the person to whom you gave the advice. Don't compare them to other people. Don't do it. Everybody has lived different experiences. Everybody process things differently. Everyone has had different life circumstances. Don't compare people to others. If you're going to give advice, don't compare people to each other. Telling the person that is asking you for advice to be more like somebody else, or comparing their situations to yours, particularly when it's not warranted, that's not helpful. Why would you say that? Because it can belittle people and make them feel like they aren't good enough. I hope I'm helping somebody. I'm telling you. I told y'all, go get your friends and sit down. Let's have this conversation. One, you're going to ask him, not ask him, you're going to assess whether or not they're 1, 2, or 3 in your life, and whether you're 1, 2, or 3 in their life. And then you can look at how you offer advice and how you receive advice, how they give advice and how they receive advice. We need to think about these things. Because one of the things that we all have, in addition to this, we all have biases. And they can affect how you communicate. They can affect the decision-making process. So trying to combat your own biases, your own situated perspectiveness, your own way of seeing things. Trying to combat that bias, it takes humility. It takes practice. It takes reflection. Sometimes it takes collaborating with people that you trust. So when advising your friends, you want to be curious rather than closed-minded. You want to allow yourself to reflect. And you want to pay attention to their verbal and nonverbal cues as they are communicating. Because when you are communicating to them, one of the things that you don't want to do is offer your biases, or come in with your biases all the time. Maybe their nonverbal communication is responding to your biases. And that can help you recognize and combat those biases that you have. Now, I make sure I hope that's helping somebody. And just a couple more. Don't y'all leave, because I have a couple more don'ts. Got a couple more don'ts. And I'm sure I may need to pick this conversation up the next time we're here, because one of the things that we don't need to do is to act like a savior. Not always, not all the time. Your role isn't to make all of your friends' problems disappear, even if you wish you could. You just can't go bum rushing into somebody's life trying to make all of their problems disappear. It's up to your friend, whether it's your 1, 2, or 3 in your life, it's up to your friend to ask you for and then to respond to your advice. If they make the choice to, you might give it. Listen, don't get upset with people when you give them advice and they don't take it. You may find it disappointing, but if you give advice to people and they don't take it, oh well, listen, you asked me for my advice. You didn't tell me you were going to take my advice. That is what Cutler, you got all the way to the end of this broadcast and then said that, and you now you know you need to keep on going with this conversation. Y'all just give me one more minute. Hang on. Because one of the things that we do when we give advice with the expectation that the person is going to take it. Perhaps they ask you for your advice so they can have another suggestion and an alternative. Maybe they need something else to weigh out. Maybe they didn't ask you for your advice specifically so they could take it. They may just wanted to see another perspective. And sometimes we get so upset with people when we offer advice and they don't take it. Advice is situational. There's no guarantee that people are going to take your advice. I'm telling you from a space of transparency. I used to get so upset with people when I would give them my advice. You asked me for my advice. I gave you advice. You all probably know I have over 25 nieces and nephews. You asked me for my advice. I gave you my advice and you didn't take it. And now you're going to pick on you coming back and you ask me, Uncle, what do I do now? Sometimes I want to say, I'm not going to tell you what to do now because when I told you the first time, but you know what? I'm glad people didn't do me like that. Thank goodness they didn't do me like that. So I've learned to extend the same grace that I wanted somebody to extend me. And I've learned not to get upset as much. I'm being transparent. I've learned not to be upset so much when people don't take my advice. Don't get upset when people don't take your advice. Don't try to act like a savior. I know that's hard for us. Sometimes we get upset. We want to turn and say, well, listen, I'm not going to have anything to do with it. You don't ask me my advice 3 times. I'm tired of giving you my advice. You don't take it. I've been there. Y'all don't leave me hanging like I'm the only one who've ever done that. Don't we sometimes get upset with people when we give advice and we see them spiraling downward? And you want to reach in there and grab them and pull them up, and you do your best at doing it. And sometimes they end up going down that downward spiral because they didn't take your advice. How many times did I find myself going downhill, going in a downward spiral when I didn't take somebody's advice? But thank goodness they still reached down to pull me back up out of the downward spiral. I'm thankful for those people in my life. Those are my threes. Those are my threes. I got to give you one more and I got to get out of here. I promise I got to get out of here. But again, I'm going to keep this conversation going the next time we see each other. Because one of the things you all tell me, do you want me to stop or just want me to keep on going? Should I stop? I'll stop. And I'll pick this conversation up again because I'm curious. I want us to come back and really be intentional and deliberate about how we give advice, how we receive advice, what our expectation is when we're giving advice. Let's talk about this. You all tell somebody the next time we talk. This is Thursday. We'll talk again Tuesday. The next time we talk, tell somebody, listen, come on, talk to Cutler, because you need to know, you need to be able to evaluate what kind of advice giver you are. You need to be able to evaluate how you feel when people don't take the advice and the counsel that you give. So let's do this. Let's talk about this again. We'll talk about it again. I'll pick this subject up. So until then, you all, let's keep doing what you do. Keep building community, keep maintaining connectivity, keep your heads up, keep your hopes up, stay safe, stay sane. Know that from my heart to yours, there is and always will be so much love. I'll see you the next time I see you. But until then, tell somebody else, please, for goodness sake, tell them. Come on. We'll do a part 2 next time. Tell them. Come on, let's talk to Cutler. Good night. I'll see you the next time I see you.